everybody. This is Susan Edwards Richmond, the author of Bird Count, and she's here today to answer the questions that Mrs. Flynn's class asked her after hearing her book being read. Welcome, Susan.
Welcome, Kate. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this. I'm very excited to hear the questions.
Great. Well, our first question is, why did you write this book?
Well, the bird count is something that is a real event that takes place every year, and it's something that I participate in. It's called the Christmas bird count because it takes place around around Christmas, usually a week or two afterwards, and everybody goes out and counts as many birds as they can see or hear. And I just thought it was an exciting thing to write a book about for children because everybody can participate. You don't have to be an expert. Everyone can go out and count the birds, and it's a great way to get out in your own environment.
Wow, that's great. I didn't realize that it took place after Christmas and not before.
It can actually take place in different places depending where you live. It's not just a Massachusetts count or local count. It's hemisphere-wide, so people are counting birds in all across the United States and even in Canada and Central America and Mexico. So each area has the option to choose. I think the count times go something like between December 15th and January 4th. So you can pick whatever date works best for your community.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize so many countries participated in the bird count.
Yes, it's a really exciting way to connect. If you think about people doing it in all types of climates and regions, different languages, very different kinds of birds and habitats.
What if people want to learn more about the history of the bird count?
So there is a long history. It actually has been going on for more than 100 years. It started in about 1900, and there's an excellent book called Counting Birds by Heidi Stempel that will take you through the history of the bird count.
Wow, thanks so much for letting us know about another great resource we might want to check out as educators. I really appreciate that.
Yes, well, I always would like to point readers to different opportunities and share the wonderful authors that are out there.
Another question our readers have is, don't all birds fly south for the winter?
That is an excellent question, because I used to think that some birds flew south because it was cold. But as I learned more and more about birds, I realized that the birds really don't care about the cold. What they care about is food. So the birds that fly south are the ones that cannot find the food source in the winter and when it's very cold or snowy or icy. So you can think about birds that like to eat insects. Do you see very many insects in this type of weather? No. So the insect-eating birds like warblers and certain kinds of thrushes and other songbirds have to fly south where it's warmer and insects are still active. Whereas birds who are eating maybe some fruit that might still be remaining on the trees or seeds or nuts, they are more capable of staying around and finding their food sources. And of course, birds like woodpeckers, which do eat insects, but they drill deep into the bark of the tree, those insects are still there and available.
Wow, I never thought about that, how woodpeckers stay, but the other birds who eat insects have to fly south.
Yeah, that's right. And some birds can adapt a little bit and have over the years. Birds like bluebirds and robins who used to fly south more. Now we have a lot more ornamental fruit trees, and so they've switched their food source in the winter to eating more fruit and less insects, and then in the spring they'll go back to eating more insects again.
Oh wow, that's neat. So some birds eat some insects and some berries, so they can have a little bit more flexibility.
That's right. Yeah, some birds have a greater, they're omnivores. They'll maybe eat a little meat, a little protein, and a little fruit.
Wow, that's awesome. Thanks for teaching me that. Another one of our readers wants to know, how come you did not include a glossary in the back of the book?
That's a great question. I think that when I was talking with my publisher about what we should include as the most helpful back matter, the thing that came up most was that the things that were most new in this book, the vocabulary that was most different, were the names of the birds themselves. So instead of having a vocabulary of concepts and terms, there weren't too many terms that weren't explained in the book. But there were a lot of bird names that would be new to our readers. So instead we made kind of a field guide in the back where you could learn more about all the species of birds that are named in the book.
That makes a lot of sense. It's so great that students can actually take this book with them outside, and they could use it as a field guide right now to see what birds are here in central Massachusetts.
Well, that's what I'm hoping when people read the book, that they will get excited about finding out what's in their own environment and use it kind of as a guide and an inspiration to head out into the wilderness. Or if they are interested, they can actually make their own tally sheets and field guides. And on my website, there's some information about how to do that and some sample card templates.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for letting me know. I'll be sure to link to your website in this blog post.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So we have one last question. One of our readers wants to know, do the different groups compete against each other to see who has counted the most birds when you gather together at the end of the day to celebrate?
That's a great question. There are a lot of different kinds of bird counts, and there is a bird count in the spring where we do compete to see how many different species we find. But the bird count that we do at Christmas time is really a census, which just means that we're trying to cover as much territory as we can and count as many birds as possible. So we're really just kind of going out, and each group, each team is covering a certain area, and it's sort of like puzzle pieces fitting together so that we can count all of the birds in a whole community, and then a whole county, and then a whole state, and finally at last we hope as much as we can in the whole hemisphere. So the party at the end is less a competition where we're saying who won or who didn't win, but more a chance to celebrate and share stories. And if anyone had some particularly wonderful findings of different birds, they can tell about that as well.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Susan, and congratulations on your book, Bird Count.
Well, thank you, Kate. This has been a real pleasure.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.